Hey everyone, welcome back to being the best version of yourself. I'm your host, Dr. Carey Heller. So today we have a special guest, Stephanie Valentine. So
Hi.
why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell the
Okay.
listeners a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So I am a good combination of things. I am a holistic nutritionist, a clinical hypnotist, and a mental health wellness coach. And I have just written and released my first cookbook. And yeah, and I've got a platform, SV Living, where you can find recipes, meditations, some, self-hypnosis recordings, blogs about wellness stuff. So that's
Oh,
me.
great.
Mhm.
Well, and congrats on the new cookbook.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it sounds like you do a couple different things that are really cool to be able to kind of put those things together.
Hmm.
I guess that gets at the holistic perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. So what had happened was I went to school for holistic nutrition in, I don't know, like 2010 or something like that. And I practiced as a holistic nutritionist for a little while, but I found that most people were coming to me just to lose weight and they were never happy. And I'm all about happiness. So I shifted away from that a little bit. And that's when I went more into food. I left out a culinary nutritionist. I did that back at the time. And then I started falling into all of these other courses because at the time I thought I was just uh, addicted to school. But it turned out that they just sort of all work together. And now when I have hypnosis clients, I can help them with food things, I can help them with mental health stuff, I can help them with traditional coaching as well as the, one problem hypnosis, fix it sort of thing.
Oh, well, that's all really great. Um, yeah. All right. So, a question I have to kind of start things off. So, I know one of the things I think you mentioned a little bit, or in general, I think with some of the stuff, with your book and everything, is that you often emphasize the importance of nutritious food for overall wellness. So, not about just, here's a diet, but think about the idea of, food being nutritious. And so, I'm
Mhm.
wondering if you're able to speak much to sort of how someone's, choice in foods can impact their functioning as far as, what are called executive functioning. So things like planning, focus, emotion regulation. Like, is that something that you could, share a little bit about how, someone's sort of, choice of foods is not ideal, how that can sort of negatively impact some of those things?
Sure, absolutely. Okay, so people tend to look at food as calories in, calories out, what's going to make me fat, what's going to make me skinny. I don't look at it that way. Food is your fuel. Food is something that you can use as a way to pass down family traditions, for socialization. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is sort of metaphysically. We've got uh, our central nervous system and our enteric nervous system. So the enteric nervous system is your gut, which I'm sure you know all about. People have gut feelings, and we've all seen if you get nervous about something, how your stomach immediately hurts. So that sort of shows you the connection between emotions and digestion. It goes both ways. So if you're eating a good variety of foods and you wind up feeding your gut microflora or the good bacteria that's in your gut well, then that helps to regulate your emotions. It helps with um, insulin peaks and valleys. It helps prevent you from having crashes in the middle of the day. It prevents you from feeling that like jittery, I'm so hungry, I'm, hangry, I'm going to yell at everybody. So that in a nutshell is sort of the function of a good diet, a well-balanced diet.
Right. So I appreciate you explaining that. So definitely there are a lot of benefits besides
Mhm.
weight loss,
Yeah.
or gaining weight, in terms of having food that's healthy and a good fit for each person, also as an individual too. Since obviously I'm sure not everyone's dietary needs are exactly the same.
Everybody's dietary needs are actually different. And that is, when I first went to school for holistic nutrition, I thought I was going to school to become a nutritionist. I had no idea what it was. And very quickly, I learned it's not the same thing at all. The concept is each person is totally different. You've got different dietary requirements, different supplement requirements, different lifestyle requirements. So, what might work for you won't work for me. What might work for me might not work for that other person. So, when you look at each person and what their requirements are, what their sensitivities are, what their intolerances are, what their needs are, that's when you can create a diet that works well for that person.
Okay, great. And in terms of the what you mentioned about sort of creating a diet. So, for a lot of people that have trouble with, executive function skills, so, time management, planning, there's often this idea of decision fatigue that it gets very tiring to try to think through what do I need to do? And, because the planning is challenging, it can be hard sometimes when people have to make a lot of decisions. And so I'm wondering if you have a couple strategies you can share, kind of maybe some go-to strategies to simplify kind of meal planning a little bit that helps reduce the mental load to make it a little bit easier for people to maintain sort of or to make a healthy diet sustainable.
Okay, great. So there are different things you can do. One is batch cooking, which I do all the time. So if I'm going to make, let's say, a spaghetti sauce, I don't make it for two people. My kids are grown, they're out of the house. It's just me and my husband now. So the pot is huge. Why? Because then I, freeze everything in 2-cup things. So then on a day that I'm feeling exhausted, I don't have the time to be in the kitchen. I've got homemade food out of the freezer, defrost it, you're good. There are lots of different foods you can batch cook. You can take advantage of the seasons and when something is less expensive at a farmer's market, most in season, freeze it or pre-prepare it, make your pestos and that kind of thing. So you'll have that on hand as well. Another thing that I recommend to people is don't go grocery shopping hungry, first of all, because you're just going to buy the stuff that you're like craving at the moment. Do a household inventory before you go grocery shopping. So you're not buying 7 cans of black beans and you still don't have any coconut milk for the recipe that you want to make. And when you're choosing snacks, you want snacks that are going to be nourishing. So if you're too hungry and you eat too much snack and then you're not hungry for your meal, it doesn't matter because you've eaten something that's okay. Cut them up, leave it out on the counter. So if you want, fruits and vegetables or fruit and some cheese and some carrots and some crackers or a homemade zucchini bread or something like that, if it's out, you're going to see it. When you see it, you're going to want to eat it. So that's another tip for that. Another thing also is if you make grab and go things. So I have, a couple of recipes in my book. There's like a breakfast cookie recipe, for instance. So it looks like a cookie, it tastes like a cookie, but it's full of healthy nuts, healthy seeds. You don't have to sit down to eat it. So if you have a busy day, if you've got back-to-back meetings, you don't have time to sit down and have that, 3-course salad, nutritious meal. You've got something with you that you can just graze on, eat along the way. Bags of nuts will help. Throw it in your bag. So those are some tips. Another thing is the whole smoothie situation. You can get them anywhere. You can make them at home. You can carry it around with you. And that way you don't get to that energy crash because you've got something with you that's sort of, feeding things in throughout your day.
All right, those are all really some awesome suggestions. I feel like there are a fair amount of those that I do already, but I'll definitely try some of those other than myself as well. Um,
Which
so,
ones?
let's see. I mean, I think the idea of like trying to keep stuff out more. So I sort of see it.
Mhm.
I think that one seems like one that, I think is a really important and great idea to sort of keep stuff out that you want instead of having to go through the refrigerator to find stuff. I think having a plan, I think in general can be helpful for food, but to also see it is going to make it easier because especially if someone's rushing, and they don't have a lot of time they're probably going to look quickly, see what can they find. But if it's something out, it's going to get your attention. And so then
Yeah.
you're less likely to then bypass it to go grab other stuff that may not be quite as healthy.
Well, that strategy works sort of for everything because our first instinct when we see something, that's when we're going to think about it and decide, do I want it? Do I not want it? Do I want to do it? Do I not want to do it? So if you have a bag of chips out, if you've got your cookie jar out, you're going to see it. And then if you don't want to be eating that, every time you walk past, you have to go through oh, there's cookies there. I don't want to eat them. So you're going to have this sort of ongoing battle with your, should I do it? Should I not do it? And that's just too much work. It's too much emotional output for that. So if you make a concerted effort to have your fruits washed and cut, your, vegetables that people like already out with like a yummy dip, because it doesn't have to be carrot food all the time. So then you walk past, you might not know you're hungry, you see that out, you're like, oh, okay, I'll just grab that and keep walking.
Yeah. Well, I think it also brings up the idea that, with planning, it's also sounds like it's quite important sometimes to have a sense of when are you likely to eat or when should you eat? Because depending on what your
Mhm.
schedule is, you have a busy schedule and you can't eat whenever you want, being able to kind of plan out, knowing to get food kind of like you mentioned earlier before you get, sort of hangry. Yeah, it can be really
Yeah,
important.
you want to try, there's this scale of like 0 to 10 hunger scale. And you want to keep yourself between, I think it's like between 4 and 8 or 3 and 7 or something like that. I don't know exactly what it is, but the concept is you don't want to get yourself below that 4 when you're starving, ravenous, can't make any choices, because it does take about 20 minutes for your brain to recognize that food is coming in. So you're going to way overeat just because your body is still starving. On the other end of it, you don't want to go past 7 where you're feeling stuffed, overfed, you have that like food coma. So if you keep yourself in the middle of that hunger scale, then you're making actual decisions about what you're eating, and your body will react to it in the way that you want it to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great way of conceptualizing it because it helps people to really think about how hungry am I and at what point should I eat based on how hungry I am.
Now, there's the other hydration thing. So this is a do what I say, maybe not exactly what I do, because I'm not the greatest at drinking, but you should. I'm going to have my water bottle now that I'm talking about it.
Yeah, same
And I
thing.
see you are
It always makes
too.
me think of it when we were talking about when I was
Yeah.
so efficient.
So one of the books actually that we studied in nutrition school was literally called You're Not Sick, You're Thirsty. So all of your cells in your body need hydration to function properly. And sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between being hungry or thirsty. So if you can carry that water bottle around and, sip on it throughout the day, then you'll also prevent that eating when you're actually just thirsty situation. And it also can prevent like the headaches and the fatigue, because those things are the first symptoms of dehydration. And once you feel thirsty, allegedly you're already dehydrated. So you want to
Well,
keep
I
yourself.
was just thinking that I was going to ask you if that like
Is that
what
true?
saying is true or not.
Probably. I don't, honestly, yes. Are you going to die because you didn't drink enough water? I don't think so. My mom is 80 and she's like the fittest person I know. Like she can still probably beat me up if she wanted to. She wouldn't, but she could. And she never drinks anything. So like, she and my dad will come and, work out in the gym, and they come upstairs and I'm like, do you need some water? And she's like, no, I'm not drinking anything. So the studies do show that yes, you need to be hydrated. Is it for it? Does it? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I found helpful with that is to have a water bottle that has sort of the numbers on it of where you should be based on either ounces or time of day. Because it's especially if you have a clear water bottle like this, you can sort of see where you are. And so because the problem I find is sometimes with water bottles where you can't see in it all, you really have no idea how much you've drinking unless you open up the top, which based on how it's closed, you wouldn't necessarily do.
True. One of the things that I like to promote is not so many rules. So I won't tell a client 10,000 steps a day, these grams of protein per day, this number ounces of water per day, because one of the really important factors in our life is our stress. And when you start layering on all of these wellness rules to stay healthy, then if you only get 8,200 steps that day and you only drank, a liter and a quarter of water, then, that boosts up your cortisol. You feel like you're a failure, haven't done everything that you wanted to do. So I like to keep it a little bit more sort of loosey-goosey on that. Um, so yes, that works. I tried to do like the 2 liter thing a day. I'm not a big person and it was too much for me. Like my kidneys hurt. Um, my husband, who's an extremist to the nth degree, a number of years ago, he was like, well, if 2 liters is good, 3 liters must be better. And if 3 liters is better, then 4 must be even better. And he started like getting puffy. I'm like, what is going on with you? We called the doctor. He came, he checked him out. He was actually like drowning himself by drinking too much water. He like, I think was peeing out all his potassium, and then his sodium potassium was off. And that could, I don't know, cause you to die. So keep everything sort of with a grain of salt, excuse the pun, or you just, you want to be drinking, but don't stress about getting that exact amount in every single day.
Good. And I think that's definitely good advice. And I think having, like a general goal to strive for, but not having it be overly strict, I think
Mhm.
definitely can make it easier for people to, have something to work towards, but also not be too hard on themselves if they don't quite meet it.
Exactly. They're guidelines, and I also hate the like go on a diet situation, because if you go on a diet, then you have to go off the diet. And the best way to approach nutrition, movement, meditation, all of those things is lifestyle. So that is part of your lifestyle. And why are you doing all those things? Because you'll feel better. And why do you care to feel better? Because you'll enjoy your life better. So it's not a measurable number that you think, okay, if I lose the 6 pounds, then everything in my life is going to be glorified. It's more, if I am able to have a sustainable diet, eat things in season because they taste better, and, they're less expensive, it's a little bit more accessible. I'm going to be, add movement to my life every day because that's the fountain of youth. And that will also stimulate all of those feel good hormones. Meditate because you're going to rewire your brain to be able to focus more and not react, but respond to things. And then you can do everything that you want to do.
Right. So there's definitely a lot of benefits of it.
Yeah.
Um, and thinking about how busy people are, I know we talked earlier, kind of, give a couple examples of someone that's really busy with work or other things. But when we look at it from a family perspective, parents with kids, especially a lot of after school activities or, sports are certainly quite common. Do you have any good suggestions for, helping sort of kids to, to navigate sort of the hydration with sports, the food, and for parents to kind of help with navigating dinners around kind of maybe a hectic after school, evening schedule with sports practices and other things?
Okay. You're asking me a question that I'm like, okay, how much time do you have? Because, okay, I've got 3 kids. They're grown. They're 29, 27, and 25. And when I went to nutrition school, they were like 10, 12, 13, like that age. So that's a real, you're in it age. My son played hockey. I had, one kid figure skating, somebody else dancing. So we lived that really busy, fast, scheduled life. So these are some of the things that uh, worked for me that I think are very helpful for other people with busy families. First of all, the picky eater. My son went through a phase where he only ate white food. What did I do about that? Completely ignored it. I wasn't getting involved in a power struggle. Whatever dinner was, if he ate it, he ate it. If he didn't, he didn't. If he was hungry enough, he would eat something at the next meal, and we were good. And that phase didn't last for very long. The other thing is kids are smart. I'm not a fan of hiding vegetables in cake or just hiding foods in something else and, slipping it into them, because I think they're sponges for information. And if you share why they want to eat various things, they're going to want to do it. You know, my kids would be like, okay, mom, I have a test today. What should I have for breakfast? And I'll be like, okay, you want to have eggs because they have choline and it's good brain food. So they take that with them. So you want to talk about why foods need to have nutrition in them. Make it fun, make it delicious. So when I say make it fun, we would have, if I was doing pizza night or taco night, taco night was our fiesta. So I would put all the various foods out on the table. Everybody would put it together for themselves. And it was just a fun thing for everybody to get involved in doing. And, chili night, I serve chili in a bread bowl. Kids, it's so fun. You can eat your bowl, and a little kid, like that's fun for them. So all of that fell into or contribute to their understanding why they need to eat healthy and what healthy eating is. They still went for Halloween, ate all the candy they wanted because, it's all about balance. When I talked about putting things out and preparing ahead, I would have the snack plate out on the counter when they would come home from school, or if I was taking them to activities after school, there'd be a Ziploc bag thrown in the back seat with, a cookie and some carrots and, some dates or whatever. You put it all in there because you don't want to be in a situation where you don't give your kids anything that they think is like the fun food. A friend of mine in nutrition school, her parents were really, really strict about it. And she was not lying when she said that. She's like, I was walking home from school one day and I saw a piece of bubble gum on the sidewalk, and she scraped it up and put it in her mouth because she wasn't allowed to chew gum. You don't want your kids doing that. So those are the things. Another thing that we did that I think is super important, especially today, is no devices at the table. No devices, no cell phone, no iPad, no smartwatch, nothing. And what does that do? That forces you to talk to each other. And as a parent, that's when you can see if there's something going on with your kids. Otherwise, how was school? Fine. Door closed. That's it. My kids got lunch at school, so I didn't make them lunches. So we would play the lunch game every night at dinner. So the lunch game was we would go around the table and everybody would say, I had D, S, and C for lunch. So everybody would like go around the table to try and guess what it was that they had. And they'd be like disgusting salad and chicken. And it brings everybody together. It helps with dynamics because I'm sure anybody who has more than one child, you've got, the talkative one and the quiet one and the shyer one. And this gives everybody a chance to talk and get involved, and it brings laughter to the situation. And, those are things that we did that were really useful and helpful and we cherished. Now, I was lucky that my kids didn't have social media when they grew up. iPads weren't a thing. Yes, I'm old, 55. So it's like it was a little bit while ago, but the value of it even if dinner's 15 minutes, no devices at the table. We still do that. We always do that. My husband is a 24/7 worker minus, the 15, 20 minutes of mealtime.
Well, I think I appreciate you highlighting. That's a really important lesson in terms of really the value of, not having devices at the table to be able to really focus on the family time and socializing. And plus, obviously, on top of that, I'm sure sort of the benefits of paying attention to while you're eating and not just mindlessly eating.
Exactly. Well, studies have shown that if you are distracted when you're eating, I think you eat like 30% more food and your body doesn't even notice it. The other thing that I would do is we eat with all of our senses. So the difference between, going through drive-through, your body has no idea there's a meal that's about to be shoved down its throat. When you're cooking dinner, you smell the food, you see the food, you hear me singing while I'm preparing the food. So all of those things are part of the meal, and your body gets ready for the food that's going to come in. Your digestion actually starts going, the hormones start being stimulated. So then when you sit down to eat, you're having the full meal. I also try and keep my plate multiple colors because, again, visually, the same thing as if you see it, you're going to want to eat it. If it looks good, you're going to be more apt to enjoy it. So, the few nights that it would be like white chicken, white potato, I don't know, cauliflower, it's a well-balanced meal, but it's all white. So, that kind of meal would be maybe white chicken, sweet potato, and broccoli. Just as healthy, but you've got colors going on. The other thing is when something is delicious, I always have my kids, and I do this, close your eyes and like savor it. Take those first few bites, eyes closed, just pay attention to every little flavor that's in your mouth. And it's all about enjoying.
Yeah, well, it sounds like, yeah, like a nice holistic approach towards really, understanding food and learning these lessons that, kids can take with them as they grow up, and not it being about, how many calories, how many carbs.
Yeah, I don't do that.
Yeah.
Some people do, and I'm not saying that that isn't helpful or useful, but I don't do that. I feel that eating disorders are a really big problem, especially these days, especially with all the social media. I see all these bodies online, and everything's photoshopped, everything's face tuned, and people think that they need to look a certain way to be accepted. So if you start putting all of these rules on what you're eating, don't eat too much, or don't get seconds, or we're not having, you know, carbs this week, or whatever it is, you're going to have a problem because, especially girls, they're going to get pressure outside of the house for that. House, I try to make it the sanctuary where it's the safe place. There's no judgment. There's no food police. There's just, let's enjoy this component of our lives.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely makes sense. I mean, I guess, do you have any thoughts on maybe how you draw a good balance between, teaching kids, about nutrition and focusing on it without it becoming so big of a focus that it then leads to a problem?
Just make it fun. That's all. You don't harp on things. You don't go over and over. Don't get into a power struggle. People aren't going to like everything. Um, if you wind up with somebody who's a picky eater and they say, I won't eat this, I won't eat that, great. You don't want this for dinner tonight? Fine. This is what's for dinner tonight. What do you want for dinner tomorrow night? So you can give that, a little bit of give and take, not getting into the power struggle, but it's it's only one part of family life. So if you don't have all of those rules, let's go back to the snack on the table. You're not saying to your kids, do you want an apple today? It's just there. So it's in the background. It's not even a conversation. So you're not contributing to the potential of that obsession or the eating disorder. There's no guarantee that it's not going to happen. Like society is society. And, you know, us as parents only can do our best, and we're not in control really of as anything. I joke that like we can make things worse, but we can't guarantee that we can make things better. Like our advice, like we can definitely make it worse, but the child who you're trying to give skills to go out there and make their own decisions, they're the ones who have to, make those choices. And there's going to be factors that you have no control over.
Right. No, that's definitely true. I guess one question that I feel like comes up sometimes, because a lot of kids I work with are athletes. In terms of the question of Gatorade or some sort of sports drink versus water in terms of hydration with sports.
Okay. So Gatorade was invented at, I think, University of Miami, the Gators, as an electrolyte replacement drink.
Yeah,
There's
I think it was Florida. I think because
was
University of
it,
Florida.
it was in Florida. Yeah. Oh, Florida, not Miami. Okay. So the idea of those kinds of beverages makes sense because when you're sweating a lot, you're sweating out, like we've all tasted the salty sweat. So you want to replenish those things. Do you want to give your kids stuff that's full of all the dyes and turns their tongues blue and all that extra sugar? Maybe not. Are there other alternatives? Yeah. So you can make an electrolyte drink that tastes great, which is what I would do. So it's water with a little bit of maple syrup for the magnesium and the carbohydrate, and a little bit of salt to replenish the sodium that you lose, and a squeeze of lemon for a little bit of vitamin C. Tastes great. Make a big jug of it. That's their sports drink. Then you also have recovery drinks. And actually, chocolate milk has, been shown to be like a pretty good recovery drink. You are going to need some sugar to replace the energy that you expended when you were exercising. So, you know, it depends on how much you're working out, how much you're exercising. Do I love all of those bottled drinks with the colors and the plastic? No. But is it going to kill you? Again, no, especially if you have a healthy lifestyle. So that would be something that maybe you could try some alternatives. Coconut water is another good alternative. I find coconut water, you either love it or you hate it. There's nobody in between. So if you love it, drink it. If you hate it, don't. Um, Depending on how high a level athlete you are, there are other ways that you're going to have to replenish that energy, because calorie is, you know, literally energy. So society thinks of calorie as fat, not energy. And our bodies were made to do one thing, and that's not die. That's it. So we have all of these systems in our bodies to prevent ourselves from dying. So how does it do that? There's the system of homeostasis that if you're cold, your body will shiver to create heat to counteract the cold, because your body's like, oh, I'm going to die because I'm too cold. If you're hot, you're going to sweat to release some of the heat, because your body's like, oh, I'm going to overheat. I need to not do that. So when you're choosing everything that you're going to do, you want to keep all of that in mind when you're making all those choices.
Yeah, well, it definitely sounds like a lot to keep in mind, but
It's a
definitely very
lot.
important things.
Yeah, but I think there is some common sense in there. Um, Frequently when your kids are involved in high level sports, then you're also dealing with their coaches and, the influence of either their teammates or the coaches. So I always encourage an open dialogue with them on what, they recommend, what they suggest. My son played high level hockey when he was a kid. So that was that thing. And then when he went to university, he was a rower. And that was a whole other situation, because rowing, you're responsible for your boat and your team. And that's, if you're a regular rower, then you just want to be tall and strong and as fit as you can be. There was one summer, my son's about 6'1" or 2, so he was borderline. His coach asked him if he wanted to go in the lightweight boat. Okay. Do not ever do that if you have a daughter or a son in a lightweight boat, because that means that every ounce that you're responsible for the other people. There's a maximum weight that boat is allowed to be. So if you're 1 pound up, your boatmate has to be an extra pound down. So there is so much emphasis on the calories that you're taking in, to not eat too much, to not gain anything. These kids, it would be race day, and you'd see them like literally on a bike, a spin bike, with like a plastic bag over them so they could sweat out that extra weight so they can make weight. He did that for about a year. He got way too skinny. Like, we were like, his ears don't match his body anymore because he's gotten so skinny. And it's taken him years to get back to no longer having an eating disorder. So those are, gymnastics does the same thing, ballet does the same thing. So when your kids are in high level sports, there's that balance, and just sort of keep aware of it.
Hmm. Right, no, definitely an important point. And again, it also sort of goes to, something else you mentioned a couple minutes ago about the importance of the coach in terms of what does the coach suggest, and, probably the influence they can have on, healthy habits to the extent that that makes sense in the context of the sport.
Yeah, and your coach can be like your best friend when you have, especially teenagers. Like, if you have a kid who's in a somewhat high level sport, they're going to say, I can't get drunk tonight because coach will kill me tomorrow. Much prefer that. It was like, oh, okay, like, I'm mom, doesn't matter what I say, but you don't want to let your coach down. You don't want to let your teammates down. So that really helps get through the whole, substance stuff that obviously can be a problem.
Right, that's definitely true. And definitely good advice. And, again, I think values the importance of, relationship with the coach and the kid or team.
Yeah, and if it's the wrong coach, you pull your kid, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, and again, it seems there's, and obviously there's a lot of overlap between stuff that's relevant for parents and adults and for kids and the family as a whole, and it kind of brings us full circle in terms of really looking at how do you sort of put all this together to create sort of a whole, or take a holistic approach towards nutrition and just general health.
How you put it all together? Well, basically the overriding idea is balance and being mindful. So if you take that approach and you sit down and you're like, okay, what am I struggling with? Because what might be difficult for me might not be the same thing that's difficult for somebody else. So it might be difficult to get everybody together for dinner every night. How do you approach that? Say, okay, let's choose 2 or 3 nights a week that we get everybody together. If you don't have that, okay, can we choose like brunch on Sunday or lunch on Saturday? Try and find something that works for you. Your struggle might be the snacks. So preparation, put the things thoughtfully that you want them grazing on out, as we said. Your problem might be that you're too busy to get good foods on the table. Meal prep, batch cook. If you have the ability or the access to, there are some, grocery food services that will deliver, the ingredients and recipes to make food every night. You could get, one of your kids involved when they get older to help prep things. So depending on what your specific issue is, just try and approach it with balance and thought.
Well, definitely really good advice. Um, and and I guess as we're kind of getting to the point to kind of wrap up for today, with this podcast episode, do you have any final thoughts to share with our listeners?
Just try and have fun. Just don't take it all too seriously. And, just try and view food as the pleasure that it is in your life. The food is your energy, your creativity, if you're into that, your place to, teach people, the place to bring your family together, to pass on traditions, to socialize. So, to have parties, to invite people in. So if you view it with that positive slant, that, positive attitude, then it can be everything that you want it to be.
Definitely great advice. And if people want to, reach out to you or find you, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at s.v.living. They can also find me on my website, which is svliving.com. And, on there, there's links to everything else.
All right. Well, great. Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It was great having you, and thanks a lot to everyone out there listening. And until next time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.